Hi everyone, this is Lee. I just want to give you guys some basic instructions on how to fill in a scantron sheet. Some of you, it may have been a very long time ago that you filled in a scantron sheet, or maybe you have never seen a scantron sheet before. So it's always good to have a little bit of a refresher. So first things that you're going to need is a pencil, all right? A really sharp one is ideal. So I like to use a mechanical pencil because they can stay sharp. Whereas a traditional wooden pencil, you need to also have a pencil sharpener so you can keep it nice and sharp. You should probably have a couple of pencils present for your test on test day. I also recommend a really high quality eraser to help you out. The erasers here on the ends of our pencils, they're not always the best, and they leave some smudges. So I'll show you, as I demonstrate, I'll show you the difference between the different types of erasers and why they may be not quite so beneficial for our scantron sheets. All right, so let's take a look at the scantron sheet and see what features it has, because there's lots going on. There's all kinds of bubbles and boxes and charts and things to fill in, and it can feel very overwhelming to take a look at this entire document and try and figure out what you need to fill in. All right. Now, on my tests, I leave notes to my students as to what exactly you need to fill in on your scantron sheets. So definitely take a look at that. It might also be up on the whiteboard as well, what you need to write on the scantron sheet. All right. So regardless of the tests that you're doing, you will always need to fill in your name. All right. So this is your name, not my name. All right. So your last name. All right, so you're going to fill in your last name. Let's say your last name is last and your first name is first. All right, then you will fill in your first and last name in those correct boxes. All right, so your last name is also known as your surname. If your last name is longer than the space that we have here, just fill in as much as it will fit. All right, and then just stop. All right, and that's perfectly fine. It's important that you actually write these letters because this is how I find your unique scantron sheet in the entire pile of scantron sheets. So I could have, 10 of these, or I could have 100 of them. So depending on how big the class is, and if I need to find your scantron sheet because maybe there's an error on it or I need to confirm something, I can only find it if you have told me your name. All right. So very, very important. Make sure that you write your name in letters. All right. Unfortunately, the computer that we scan these through do not read letters. They like to read these bubbles that are underneath the letters. So what you need to do is underneath the letter corresponding. So here we have the L. We're going to scroll all the way down to the L, and we're going to color in that dot. And that lets the computer know that the first letter in this name is an L. And then we're going to do the same for all of the rest of the letters in this word. All right, so we're going to fill them all in. All right, so we filled in the last name, and then we're going to do the same thing for the first name. All right, and so it's really, really important that you fill it all in. All right, the computer will only write or record what you fill in. So if you make a mistake filling these in, then it's also going to record that mistake. All right, so make sure that you're filling it all in. Let's say you have a hyphenated name. All right, you can put your hyphen. There's no space for a hyphen, so you just leave it blank. And then you put in the next portion, all right, of the name. All right, and that's perfectly fine as well. All right, so if you have a hyphenated name, you can do that, or you can just leave it without the space, and that will suffice as well. All right, so you fill in those letters as well. Okay, usually you don't need to fill in anything here, and quite frequently you don't need to fill in anything down here at the bottom. These are for other purposes. You do sometimes need to fill in the student number. All right, so let's say your student number is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You would fill in all of those numbers, all right, corresponding to your student number. Okay, You don't always need to fill in your student numbers, so check with your professor or me if I'm your professor that semester to see if we want your student number or not, all right? It's not always required on this document. You'll never get in trouble for filling it in, all right? So if you have time and want to fill it in, go ahead, okay? The bulk of your test is going to be answered over here on this side, all right? This is where you're going to put most of your answers to your test. Okay, but before you get there, it's important that these two boxes get filled in, all right? And the reason why these two boxes need to get filled in is these tests are going to get filed somewhere, or they're going to be handled by people outside of our department. And so it's really, really important that we know who the instructor is in case this test page gets separated from the pile, all right? So you're going to put your instructor's name. All right, so, you know, if you've got an amazing professor, all right, you're going to fill that in there. And then the test name. So you're going to provide the course code, all right. You're going to provide the unique test. Let's say it's a final, all right. And then usually there's a version of the test. So you might have version B, let's say, all right? And so you're going to fill that in. This information is usually written on the whiteboard or directly on the test itself, all right? And what this does is this tells us what course you were in, all right? Which exam we're writing, and which version you had. So we need to make sure that your test goes in the correct pile to be marked properly by the computer, all right? But it also lets us know for in the future when we go looking for that test, let's say there's a dispute over the marks, or we need to, you know, take a glance to see if a bubble was colored incorrectly so we can find you an extra mark, then I need to be able to know which course you were in and which exam it is, because we might have 3 exams in our course, and so it will be more challenging to find that exam. All right, so let's take a look at these areas here where we actually fill in our answers. All right, so you're going, the numbers that are here correspond to the numbers of the questions on the test. So if you're answering question 16, you want to fill in the bubbles related to question 16. So always double check that the number of the question matches the number that you're answering on the scantron sheet. All right. When you're answering your questions, you want to color in the circles as solid as possible, all right? You don't want to scribble outside the line or color outside the line. These two answers will be very challenging for the computer to read, and it may record it as an error. So do make sure that you're coloring them in nice and clean and making it very clear which is the answer, okay? If you answer 2 answers in the same question, you will get that question wrong because these are multiple choice questions, and so there is only ever one correct answer, and so the test will record this as an error, all right? And so you won't get the mark for this question, even if one of these answers is correct. All right, because you've chosen 2 answers. So make sure that you're only filling in 1 answer. Let's say that you had intended to put this D on number 8, but you accidentally put it on number 7. That happens sometimes. The handy erasers, all right, you want to be able to erase nice and smoothly and erase it nice and cleanly, all right, and then you can record it where you had intended. All right, now you see how nice and clean that erase. There's still a little bit of mark there. All right, the computer will probably be okay with that, but they don't really like it. So you want to get it as clean as possible. If you use the eraser that's at the tip of your pencil, all right, we've all been in grade school. We know what happens. We sometimes end up with this, all right, and the computer hates that. The computer will not read this answer at all, and in fact now it's smudged into number 9 and number 7 and could cause problems for reading that entire question. All right, so I highly recommend bringing a nice high quality eraser with you to the exam so that you can clean it up, right? And even now that it's smudged like that, it will remain smudged like that. All right, so it's very important that we make sure that we're coloring in these circles as much as possible, as cleanly as possible. All right. We don't want to, let's say we circle this because we're going to come back to it. We don't want to do that. All right. Because the computer's not going to like this mark. We don't want to go through and make all kinds of marks here and maybe, you know, make happy faces or you know, draw bodily systems or whatever it is that we're doing. We don't want to do calculations on the side. Use scrap paper for that stuff. You want to keep this test page as clean as possible and make sure that all of the bubbles that are being colored in are very, very clear on what the answer is. All right. You don't want to be ambiguous with this. The computers do not like ambiguity. All right. If you do have any questions, make sure that you reach out to your professor so that we can help you. All right. And thank you for watching, and I will see you on test day.